Champions with great weapons I have in the past called the worst great weapon unit in the game and disparaged heavily, but now the meta kind of revolves around great weapon units in general, so how do they stack up? Well, let's take a look here. I've got two battles to show you. First, myself playing Norsca against Flying Tacos, Lizardmen, and then we've also got a battle against the Empire up next. So let's take a look here at the builds in this first match. I've got three Hunters with throwing axes, 3 champions with great weapons, 4 Marauders, Throg leading the way, kind of mobile force over here, single Manticore, a couple Warhounds, a couple of Horsemen with Javelins, and a Metal Sorcerer on a Chariot. Flying Taco doing some excellent skirmishing already with some Chameleon Stalkers, taking some chunks out of those Hunters. I'm fine to take these blowpipe grenades on anything that's not the champions, basically. We've also got the Flying Taco Lizard, the Spirit of Tepok here, all Saurus Warriors with shields, Temple Guard as well, Regiment of Renown, Life, Slon, and a Solar Engine, some Feral Cold Ones. Flying Taco, big fan of the Feral Cold Ones, he's been using them quite well. We had a few games in this session where he used them to good effect against me, and here they're going to kind of counteract these Hounds. I'm forced to pull away there. Horsemen also getting blasted. The Spirit of Tepok also going to rush over, so we'll get this kind of pitched mobile engagement here. Feral Cold Ones will get the charge on my Hounds, so that's going to be a little bit rough for me. The Manticore will eventually dive in and help, but Solar Engine also firing in to apply the Blinded debuff on the Horsemen, who will also rush in, and the Spirit of Tepok will kind of keep them in the distance. As this infantry engagement gets underway, you can see the Chameleons blasting Marauders quite effectively. Champions maneuvering in a position. I want to get them on the Saurus and the Temple Guard if at all possible. Also, getting them on the Solar Engine is going to be quite nice. We kind of box up the champions here. Try and also concentrate fire on the Solar Engine. You can see the Spirit of Tepok still yet to land there. Already one Hound routed away. But here comes Banishment. Very well placed. Just completely rips one unit, but also turns treacherously to take a big chunk out of those Saurus Warriors as well. But Marauders have effectively screened. My champions are able to get into combat without taking too much damage. Pop, fight, or die to give them some extra melee attack. They do have somewhat low melee attack and defense, which is one of the reasons why I was so low on them before. Nice aura of pretzels here to help counteract that attack buff. So it'll be a net zero effect, more or less. But the charge bonus, 30 charge, is pretty good for an infantry unit. And the Great Weapon meta right now is really all about charge bonus, right? As these other champions charge in. They do have some of the coolest looking hammers in the game. Ooh, just brutal hits there. The Temple Guard also, but you see this is going to be pretty decisive. Massive Overcast Final Transmutation also doing a ton of damage here. I had actually taken some pretty good damage on the champs from the drop rocks and from the ranged fire when it finally came down to it, so that is going to kind of swing things back in my favor, and the champs will be able to win that engagement. So pretty good stuff from the Sorcerer. He's also charging into the back line here. This other champion managed to maneuver up and around. A few of them are engaged on the Solar Engine, just kind of chipping him down. Also getting these Javelins routed off in the back. So pretty good break for me. I did lose this mobile engagement, but at the same time, I still have some resources kind of hanging around. Spirit of Tepok is an imminent threat, though, coming in to disrupt the throwing axes. So we're going to turn and create an arc and fire there. The one thing about the Quaddle, though, I noticed in the games, I actually totally didn't pick up on this. I guess if I did, I forgot in the early access, but he's got 25% missile resistance plus 15% magic resistance, so, like magic missile spells aren't going to do much against him, and obviously the Hunters here, their throwing axes are going to do less. Also, if you'll notice that the hitbox is a little bit weird here. The animations plus the, weird small hitbox means the throwing axes actually don't hit hardly at all there. A little bit inefficient, but regardless, the champs were able to effectively mop up the rest of the Temple Guard and the Saurus Spears. They're all pretty much combat ineffective at this point. Also, again, just bogging down this Solar Engine here. So I'm not too worried in the late game. I mean, Throg in a little bit of danger here. Spirit of Tepok starting to take some damage, but also Throg is pretty low as well. The Slon does get broken. I'm going to have to maneuver this Chariot. Flying Taco trying to block with these Pterodons, kind of just scoot around them, and we make sure I chase that live Slon off. He does have enough leadership that he should recover, but for whatever reason, he stays routed there. Shaman Sorcerer is able to keep him off. Throg, though, also gets routed and terrified here by the Spirit of Tepok. That's not great, and these Feral Cold Ones just continuing to wreak havoc in my backline. Some of the best use of them I've seen recently. But speaking of wreaking havoc, we still got a pretty healthy unit of champs here. The other champs are also coming back, having been routed off, but also still pretty effective in this late game, even turning to fight these Saurus here. Champs, another reason why I don't completely love them, I mean, just stat-wise, they're not amazing, again, in terms of their attack and defense. When they have that in Rage popped up, they do get the extra attack, obviously, and physical resistance. Their weapon strength is okay. Charge bonus is pretty decent. We will compare them to some other great weapon units after the fact, after both games, but they're all right. Mainly, though, now with their charge bonus sort of applying to pretty much any unit, even if they're getting knocked over. That is sort of the bug. For those of you wondering why I talk about Great Weapon meta, is because as these flying units very jankily fight each other, Plague of Rust here on the Spirit of Tepok to take it to 10 armor, so that Manticore might do okay. Anyway, so they just apply their charge bonus on the charge, even against like cavalry and monsters and stuff, which previously if they got knocked over, they wouldn't apply their charge bonus and damage. Right now, it seems that they do. I think that's the issue. Regardless, though, you can see that 30 charge, they come in here, despite how low they are, start to pop that in Rage. First tier goes off, gives them some extra leadership just to hold in this fight long enough to try and finish. I mean, only 17 models, but still, they can get to that next tier of Enrage, gain that little bit of extra melee attack, right? And you see the difference that 8 leadership makes, or however much it was. Definitely would have routed earlier, just able to hang around that much a little bit longer. So the rage mechanic is pretty nice for these late game scenarios like that. They are actually able to beat those Saurus Spears despite, you know, their dangerous situations. So it's pretty good so far. This other unit as well, if Throg can get in there and pop the Frostbite on the Solar Engine, they'll be able to catch up. But it does look like we're going to hit army losses. Good game to Flying Taco. Yeah, ended up being pretty close, actually. The beautiful play by these Feral Cold Ones. Have to say, both of them got some really good value, and definitely opened my eyes to ways you could potentially use them in counter Hound play. Also, the Stalkers did pretty well. The Infantry had a little bit of a tough time against the Champs, and of course, if you look at the Shaman Sorcerer here, got 3,000 value. Both the Pterodons also got caught up, even though they did get good value in and of themselves. Both of them did get caught up in that big Overcast Final Transmutation. Also these infantry units too, obviously. But the Champs, you look, they did end up paying for themselves. A lot of that comes because they're able to, you know, with the Final Transmutation, break the Saurus and Temple Guard, and then actually while they're chasing them, they do get a lot of kills. 35 speed, I forgot to mention, is pretty good for a Great Weapon unit. You'll see a lot of other kind of heavy Great Weapon units are significantly slower. Well, that is a little bit of benefit. It's not that fast, but it is fast enough that, like, if they're fighting another heavy infantry unit, they're probably going to be able to chase them off once they get the break, and at the very least get some extra kills. Hunters pretty well limited by the Spirit of Tepok, and my Mobile Force, same thing. Ended up getting some okay value on the Manticore at the end of the day, though. Throg also contributes some, also tanks a lot of damage. Yeah, from Flying Taco's side, the Spirit of Tepok, pretty good. Didn't quite get its damage value back, but some really good terror routes. Solar Engine was somewhat limited here because of my mobility and infantry and everything, but still, pretty fun game. Anyway, let's go ahead and get to the next one. Here we are, more or less same composition this time. I'm up against Red Wedding Planner, one of my patrons, and yeah, 3 Great Weapons again, with 4 Marauders kind of screening them. This time, Wulfric the Wanderer in for Throg, and a slightly different Skirmish and Mobile Corps. We've got 3 Horsemen this time, a couple of Warhounds up front with them, and then the Norscan Dog Kennel here, Beasts of Tashnar, and Ice Wolves. Love using them in tandem. Metal Sorcerer on the Chariot once again, this time from the Empire. Balthazar Gelt up in the sky. Witch Hunter, a couple of Knights of the Blazing Sun, lots of infantry, including some Free Company militia. Sterlin's Revenge, love to see that. Some Huntsmen. Yeah, Hammer of Witches here. Spearmen, Swordsmen. Witch Hunter plus Balthazar is a pretty good combination. You don't see it too often, but Plague of Rust plus Accusation is minus 90 armor, which is enough to put almost any unit on Norsca's roster at 0 armor. I mean, really, like the Chariot has 90. I think Mammoths only have like 70. So, yeah, very effective with the Huntsmen and the Free Company, certainly. And in general, the thing about Great Weapons, kind of going back to them, as we take a hard turn from the Empire's composition, Greatweapons, because of their interactions with cavalry especially, they're good in just about every matchup now is the main thing. Like, their weakness now is really only missiles. Like, in melee fights, they will win about just against... Sorry, they'll win against just about any unit type, right? So, Marauder champions with Greatweapons, again, also because of the charge bonus interaction, 30 charge is actually pretty solid. You apply that to 75 infantry models, and it gets out of hand pretty quickly. I'm taking a charge, though. Knights of the Blazing Sun here, getting a good counteraction against this Beast of Tashnar. Ice Wolves are able to mostly escape. On the other side, also taking some shots from the cannons, as the Hounds and Horsemen just kind of bide their time here. I'm, again, totally fine to take the cannon shots on the Horsemen rather than on the Champs, though. Champs are definitely going to be the best target. And here, we do see that 80 armor is good. It's not that great. Wolfric unleashing a bow here is able to do some nice damage on the Free Company, but they got a decent volley there on those Greatweapons. But I am hunting for heavy cavalry here with my Champs. So you can see kind of as I deploy them, this infantry fight kind of going down here. We are going to get into combat. This one is going to commit pretty hard to try and chase these skirmish units, but some nice screening here from these spearmen. Wolfric also getting in, disrupting a little bit there. Hunter Champions on Balthazar, just in case he tries to charge down. You know, I guess I could have put it on the Witch Hunter there, but Searing Doom being dropped. Frontline engagement, I'm winning pretty decisively. The state troops obviously can't hold up to this massive assault of Champs and Marauders, and here, this is exactly what I want. Red Wedding Planner gets his cavalry here, Knights of Blazing Sun, caught up on the Hounds. I'm able to countercharge in with the Greatweapons. And that is going to be a very much ideal situation. The Hounds are just getting chewed to pieces, as you would expect, but Knights of Blazing Sun now, having not got their charge and having been charged, the rough situation. This other unit, though, this is, for them, the ideal situation about how to beat the Champs, right? I do get a charge order? No, maybe not. I don't remember 100%, but regardless, they get a pretty good charge in here without getting hard countercharged by the Champs, which is exactly what they want. Even still, though, you really don't want to hang around in combat with too long. You can see they've dealt some damage, and they're going to now pull away there, which is definitely, again, the right call. You're always going to take some losses, but this other unit here shows a little bit of a spiteful Searing Doom just to finish things off. Did beat down my Hounds and my Horsemen, but Champs came in and cleaned up a huge amount of value. But the ranged line for now is holding. Credit to Red Wedding Planner here. He's able to kind of keep his forces protected with space at the very least. These Huntsmen routing here probably will come back. My Marauder's dangerously overextending. Same thing with Wolfric here. He's going after the Witch Hunter, but then this massive concave of Free Company just opens up on him. And even though they don't have the best armor piercing, just purely volume-wise, they're going to do some damage, and obviously Sterlins do actually have armor piercing, so that does hurt quite a bit. Knights of Blazing Sun also kind of just hanging back safely. Some of the infantry for a Red Wedding Planner does get a little bit overextended, though, chasing my Marauders, and I'm going to keep these Champs back just to kind of screen them out and beat them down here. Halberd's also getting somewhat overwhelmed, so let's see what we can do. This other unit of Champs closing in as well, so mostly, I mean, I'm fine to take all the damage on these Marauders, absolutely. As long as we can keep the Champs healthy until the late game. A little bit of a Searing Doom just to disrupt the formation there, force them to move, even if it doesn't do that much damage, which, to be fair, it does do a pretty decent amount of damage. And the Knights of Blazing Sun also maneuvering into position, trying to protect these Free Company. Again, definitely the right call. Also potentially pull this Manticore into the line of fire. They're going to charge in, try and break these Marauders. The Manticore will drop on the Free Company. But this Witch Hunter also hanging around has taken quite a bit of damage. Also done a lot of damage to Wolfric, surprisingly. Balthazar, I don't know in terms of Winds of Magic if he has enough for another Final Transmutation at this point. But possibly waiting until I potentially blob up with my infantry here. Or, yeah, even I know Red Wedding Planner as a patron. You could even just come in and drop a quick rear charge with Wolfric while he's fighting the Witch Hunter. You may have been able to get a few cheeky attacks. And there it is risky, I certainly will say, if Wolfric turns around and gets a hit. But considering I don't have anything to keep you on the ground there, maybe pull back up into the air. Regardless, though, the Knights of Blazing Sun still staying alive quite well, countercharging this Manticore, getting it enraged. Although it was able to terrify away quite a bit of the Free Company. And the Champs pretty much mopped up everything else in the background. I mean, still got the Sigmar Suns hanging around here. A few more tattered spearmen and so forth. Champs just running them down. 148 kills there. Yeah, I mean, again, with the speed, we come back to that. 35 speed for a heavily armored great weapon unit. I say heavily armored. They're like barely heavily armored, but still 80 is good. That's kind of in the range of where it starts to get good. But we see like Free Company are only 36, right? And I think State Troops are only 30. Yeah, right? So they're only 30 armor and 30 speed. The champs with great weapons are just straight up faster. So they definitely been hitting the, the Stairmaster, getting some extra cardio. Balthazar charges in and is able to finish off Wulfric. This is why I say maybe, I mean, he does have the support of the Free Company here, and Wulfric does just get straight up killed by a Free Company firing squad. So maybe it was better to take that engagement with the support of the Free Company rather than just the Witch Hunter. But now the Manticore is an imminent threat, and here we go. The champs closing in. Searing Doom popped. Gonna get a tiny bit of contact on these Sterling's Revenge, but the final stand of the Free Company. As these champions close in, and the Free Company could try and run here, but more than likely, once the champs hit their charge animation, they're going to be able to catch them. Charge animation is probably about 40 speed, if I had to guess, based on what we saw there, although everyone's tired, so it's a little bit hard to tell. They are going to be all slower than usual. The Manticore ends up taking a few extra shots here. I was a little bit worried that this unit of Free Company, if it shot the Manticore, would be enough to defeat its leadership here. It is not, just barely. I'm able to hold, and yeah, the champs just chasing the Free Company all the way to the edge here. Yeah, catching up some of their unit models. And when they are unlucky enough to get caught, oh man, some of the Free Company are actually fighting back though. Yeah, kick them. That kicking animation. Oh man, reminds me of Bannerlord. Just Mountain Blade in general. Anyway, Red Wedding Planner's going to throw in the towel there, but still, very fun game. Ends up being pretty close. Nice finish on Wulfric with the Free Company, but you can see from my army, he basically dealt with just about everything. I mean, the Shaman Sorcerer, again, really cost-effective. Nice Searing Dooms this time. But the champs are all still just so healthy. Two of them almost pay for themselves. This one more just by its presence. The fact that it's here and still so healthy in the late game is very dangerous, but impressive kill totals as well. Just absolutely ripping apart State Troops, which is pretty nice. I mean, they will trade very well into low-tier infantry, it seems, given the right situation. Yeah, supporting elements from my army, once again, kind of paid the price, so I will say this about great weapons and sort of the great weapon meta in general. You can't necessarily, with certain factions you can. Maybe in Norsca, if you were to just replace all of these regular Marauders with great weapons, you could also find some success, but especially in matchups with missiles, I do still think you need some screening. Again, like armor-piercing missiles especially, but just missiles in general are the one weakness to great weapons, so it is nice to have all these supporting elements kind of build everything around protecting these guys and allowing them to get their work done, right? So anyway, great game to Red Wedding Planner. Definitely very solid stuff. State Troops, a little bit of a mixed bag. A lot of them kind of struggle in that infantry fight, but Sigmar's Sons end up paying for themselves, even if they do overextend. Impressive performance from the Free Company, though. I mean, two of them, especially the Sterling's Revenge, man, 1,200 value. Really good stuff. The Huntsman, not quite what you would want to see, but pretty close. From a build composition perspective, I would say you can probably cut the cannon here. Norsca, it's not like you need to draw them into a fight anyway, because you're probably going to have missile superiority, and given their mobility, they do have a pretty good mobile core. I would say it can be tough to protect the cannon, especially, I mean, even their infantry is relatively fast, right? So, yeah, I'd probably just cut this for like 2 more Pistoliers, maybe even 2 more Free Company. Yeah. The Knights of the Blazing Sun, though, considering the build I had is really nasty against them, they still did pretty decently. With the right micro, they can definitely pay for themselves. But anyway, let's do some quick comparisons once again to talk about great weapons, higher tier great weapons especially in general. Best score here for the Beastmen, so let's just keep them up. I mean, I'm going to specifically leave out great swords because they're a little bit different with their anti-infantry bonus. Just understand they largely revolve around the same mechanics. They just typically have lower overall weapon strength and charge bonus, but we've got Black Orcs here, who I still think are the best overall in this class of kind of higher tier great weapon units. You got Best Gore, of course. Champions are now in this conversation in a way that previously I didn't think they were. We'll kind of look at that in just a second, but and I might be forgetting a few. Again, Graveyard with great weapons are more of a great sword with their anti-infantry bonus. You could still compare them, but just for the sake of simplicity, let's keep it somewhat limited here. And Chosen, of course, being sort of the top of the heap in terms of raw stats, quite a bit more expensive than these other ones, so it's a little bit tough to compare. But anyway, let's keep the champs on the unit card and sort of look. Bestigor are going to have the best charge of any units in this class, especially considering you've got the Bestial Surge giving them additional charge bonus, an additional, 3 charge bonus. They go up to 35. You know what, I am forgetting one unit that I did mean to include, not heavily armored, but great charge bonus, and is actually a great weapon unit. A lot of people are forgetting. I need to play around with some Plague Monk Sensor Bearers in this quote-unquote great weapon meta. It does look like they actually might have higher charge than Bestigor, so I stand corrected. 37 charge, 44 weapon strength also is insane on 90 unit models. Whoops, as I smack my mic stand. That is, I mean, on paper, that looks ridiculous. I need to try these guys. They are very squishy, but their attack also is really not great. So in sustained combat, they might not do too well. But on the charge, these guys might have some pretty legitimate damage output, given the current circumstances. Anyway, back to champs. So champs at 30 charge sort of sit in the middle. They are a little bit better than Black Orcs in that respect. They have a little bit more unit models than Black Orcs. I mean, on par with something like Hammers. Hammers, again, less charge, significantly more weapon strength, and I guess they have splash attacks now. But the other thing to note is the attack and defense. I mean, they are technically better than Black Orcs, but Black Orcs, I would say, they have more access to attack buffs. Norsca does have some attack buffs. I don't think you really lack melee defense buffs, which can potentially be a little bit of an issue, but Fight or Die on all of your lords is okay. I mean, you do have, I guess, like Shadows, Enfeebling Foe for a single target. You do have Cascading Firecloak for a single target, right? So you have some stat buffs, but not at the same access to stat buffs. Certainly something like Greenskins with Wa, with Wurzag's constant stream of attack. Everything else, you know, Sneaky Stabbing, you've got Fists of Gork, here we go. Just lots and lots of different ways to buff your stats. So Black Orcs, I would say, kind of on average, you should add maybe like +4 or 5 to this melee attack if you were to average over the course of the whole game. And of course, 50 weapon strength. They also have the most HP, I believe, of any unit here. Yeah, even more than Chosen. And their mass is also ridiculous. So that is a couple advantages they have over Great Weapon Marauders champions, but let's look again at the speed here. So charge bonus we've established. They're sort of middle of the pack, maybe upper middle of the pack, but it is quite solid. Speed here for champions with great weapons. 35 speed, again, Bestigor slightly faster. Chosen obviously much slower. Black Orcs are going to be slower as well, probably. Yeah, Hammerers and Sensor Bearers are actually faster. Yeah, it makes sense considering they have no armor, and you know they also have the sort of speed mechanic of strength in numbers, which does change that somewhat, but also gives them additional melee defense as well, which I always forget about. Anyway. Yeah, so speed is also kind of on the top end here, and those two factors combined means that in many situations, again, they get a break on a high-value unit. They can actually chase them off, whether it be a slower monster or a heavy infantry unit. It does give them a pretty good advantage. The stats thing is something to be aware of. 80 armor is also on the lower end of the ones that have heavy armor. I mean, obviously it's more than Sensor Bearers, but I mean, everything else here pretty much has more armor than them, so two things to kind of keep in mind. They will be more vulnerable to missiles than other great weapons because of that, but certainly can be effective in the right situation. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, hopefully you learned something. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification every time I upload a new video. You'll be notified. Thanks again, see you next time.